So let me fix that. Thank you, John. Um, so let me start from the top. We've got another day of the challenge, day two. So we've got a jam-packed delivery today of helping everybody understand how to go about hiring their next or their first sales superstar. So let me back up and help explain why I'm doing this challenge, because what we're really doing is helping everybody go um, do a better job of hiring. And the premise of this is that business owners are hiring salespeople the same way that we hire everyone else in our organization. And by doing that, we're experiencing some problems with retention. We're experiencing some problems with that the salespeople aren't doing exactly what we want them to do. They're not coachable. We're not able to hold them accountable. And often, given that we've hired them that way and the experience that we had, we probably wouldn't hire them again. So this becomes the reason for this challenge is that I want to fix that, and I'm going to do these challenges consistently to help as many business owners as possible change this. So we're going to give you everything you need: the mindset changes, the tools, the tips, the techniques, and the templates to make it happen. And it all stems from my own problems that I've had, starting back my first sales gig in 2000 to when I had to hire salespeople when I was running a sales team as a fire alarm manufacturer. Screwed it up more times than I care to admit. My batting average at one point was less than 30% of getting it right. And I went out on a mission to try to figure out a way to hire salespeople better without completely upsetting the apple cart. So my thought was I could do it the same way I go about qualifying sales prospects, and really look to disqualify the candidates. So I needed some criteria, and a mentor of mine brought me the STAR program, and that's what we're talking about here. STAR is the sales talent acquisition routine, and it works. We have a 92% success rate when we hire somebody that's recommended and we onboard them well. This system works. It requires a few changes about how we go about the business of hiring, but it's not complicated because I can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So, and it's one of the big problems that I hear from CEOs and entrepreneurs is that their revenue forecast is wrong and unreliable. That's probably the it's either first or second, depending upon the time of year, and how close they are to getting their forecast. They're complaining that doesn't work. So one of the things I did is I wrote this book. If you can't really see it, but it's the 7 critical mistakes CEOs make with their sales organization. Available at Amazon. You can go grab it, and it covers sales hiring. It covers the forecast. It covers why these problems are there. But you can go buy it on Amazon. Happy for you to do that. But if you give me a DM, or if you just shoot me an email, ping me somehow, I will get you a free copy of the book just for being a participant in the in the challenge. So that get that sent out to you. Actually give you 2 copies. So one for you to give out to somebody else who might be struggling with some of the same frustrations. So just let me know. The folks in the VIP get that automatically. It'll come out to you later this week. It's a little self-promotion, but the feedback I've gotten from CEOs who've read the book, it's real short, it's to the point. I wrote it, so it's not complicated, but it defines a problem that you might be having, and then it talks about what you're experiencing, how you identify it, and then it helps you understand what you need to do with your team to go solve the problem. And it's rarely the solution is directly tied to the symptom that you're feeling. And I always relate it to this. If you think about it, you're having a knee problem, right? You've been walking around and your knee's aching, and you can't put your finger on it. And you finally go to the doctor after 6 or 9 months because you're just struggling with the pain. And the doctor doesn't go about just doing surgery that afternoon, they ask you some questions. They do a little diagnostics. They run some tests, right? They look at what the symptoms that you're experiencing and go in and take a peek, right? They might even do some x-rays, maybe an MRI. And that's what this book helps you look at. It helps you understand that. And it's rarely the knee in that situation. And what often happens is that when they do the diagnostics, it is your hip that was causing the problem, right? That went out of alignment. So your body adjusts and causes problems. Same things can happen with your back. So not that we're doctors at Helix, but we take that approach. We're going to run some diagnostics. We're going to look at what we're doing and then try to understand those symptoms as to really what's the cause. And with a revenue forecast, it's not the forecast is wrong. It is what we allow into our pipeline. So get into that into the book. So again, if you're would like a copy of that, just let me know, and we'll get that sent out to you. So let me jump into the slides here. So one of the things that my team told me about last night was that there were some questions that I want to cover. So we're going to go into a little bit more about mindset and the fundamentals, and we're going to talk about the framework of writing an ad so we get this off right. Yesterday, we talked about making sure that we're clear about the role. What do we want them to do? Do we want them to be hunters? Do we want them to be account managers? Do we want them to be a combination of that? Do they need to be closers, right? So once we get that clear, then we need to go about writing an ad. Back to the questions that we had last night from a couple of people that wrote in. It has to do with these 6 things that people salespeople are different. The 6 reasons, and the one that came up was the timing thing. So I want to give an explanation around timing that will maybe help clarify this a little bit more. The idea that salespeople are brought into the sales cycle, we're brought into the buying process later than what we used to be. At the beginning, they needed us years ago. They needed us to come in and provide all the answers, give them all the information. And now they have that ability to go find out a lot of information without us. So we're invited into the process of the buy at a much later date. And what we see in regards to timing is that the buyer will come to the salesperson and they've sort of discerned where they're at and they've kind of understood what they're looking for, they think. And they want to avoid having this conversation with the salesperson. So they come in early, they come in late, they get this conversation going with the salesperson, and they ask the salesperson for a proposal. They ask them for a quote, whatever the right language is in your world. And the salesperson too often is excited to provide that proposal. They're excited to be able to give them the quote. And they want to run back to the office and go work on this proposal. And they have no information. They have no understanding of what's important to that customer. They have no information about if they're really qualified, if there's somebody that has a problem that we can solve, that we don't really understand their problem. Everything that we go through in a discovery process that's missing. And we just go and jump in and do that proposal. And then it's like this quote and hope situation. And we have no control. So once we give that customer, that prospect, exactly what they're looking for, we're done. We have no more leverage. We're going to chase them around and waste time. And that's what I'm talking about with the timing, that we have to be able to resist that urge to provide a proposal. So what I coach salespeople on is that we're happy to do the proposal. Let me ask you a question, right? And then we have a dialogue around what that is. Even if we come into that late, even if that's the first part of the buyer's discussion with us is, hey, saw your product online, looked great, really think it's what we need, excited, can you put together a proposal for you? Happy to. Let me ask you a question. right? Because they don't know anything really about our product, and we don't really know anything about them, and if we're a fit. So we got to get in there and qualify it. So that whole timing component here is really about where we enter in the sales cycle. And I hope that better defines the understanding of that. The lack of control and the rejection piece, I think those are fairly self-explanatory. That resistance of people wanting to, the salesperson having to go through that resistance and push a little harder than they might, right? So one of the things that we talk about is sales DNA. And we have this, some folks have a high need to be liked, right? They want everybody to be their friend, and some places they want them to be. They want to be loved by their prospects and their customers. We all need to be loved. We all need to be liked, right? That's part of our human experience. But in our role as a salesperson, it gets in a way of being successful. And so that resistance becomes a bigger issue for the salesperson when they have that problem, when they have that ability that they need to be liked. It's a weakness in the role, and that's really how we're defining this, in the role of a salesperson. So when we talk about this tomorrow, the sales DNA, there's 6 findings that we're going to cover, and that need to be liked. Another one is the ability to talk about money and talk about budget and what's a lot of money and what makes somebody uncomfortable with a lot of money. When we combine those 2 things, that resistance becomes a bigger factor. So understanding these things as we're interviewing, understanding these findings and where these strengths and weaknesses are with the candidate is important to find it out before we pull the trigger and make them an offer. It's important to do this before we offer them, before we start selling the role. And I think that's a part of the mindset that we covered yesterday, but it's worth kind of hammering this home. That's one of the big mistakes that we make as a hiring manager or business owner. We're excited about the role, we're excited about the company, but we don't know if this person's qualified. We don't know if they're really a good fit for the role that we have. So instead of selling them and doing a proposal and getting them excited about something, let's take the time to invest in figuring out if this person's the right fit, right? That's the job. And I don't care if the economy is such that there's a fewer group of people. It's too freaking expensive to hire somebody and get it wrong, right? There's probably some of you on this live stream that have hired people in the past, got it wrong, and it's cost you tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands over the years. So let's take our time to get this right, and we save time by slowing this process down and not selling it. Let's sell the people that matter. Let's sell the people that really come along at the end that are the right fit. And I like to share this story. It wasn't my client; it was one of my colleagues' clients. They orchestrated this sale of the job and of the role. And you don't need to go to this extreme, but I think the point is important, that when we're selling the role at the end, is that they had created this conference room for the candidate to come in, and they were going to pay this person $250,000 a year, and they had a huge revenue target that they had to hit. This was a big hire for them, and they needed to get it right, and they found the person that they wanted. And then this is when they started to sell. So they sold this person on the role by bringing him into this conference room, and there was a picture of the CEO on the wall, right? And the only thing that was on the wall was that, and a couple of plaques on the other side, big conference room table. So the candidate's in there, they get him a bottle of water, and then the VP comes in and sees that the candidate's looking at the picture, and it's like, oh yeah, it's our CEO, and he tells him a little story about this. And he says, look, he doesn't pay much attention to the sales team. He comes in every day, but he's not really focused. His passion is on the engineering side and the manufacturing piece. He doesn't pay a lot of attention. So they start to sit down and they go through this. They start to get the interview going, and this was orchestrated. It's a bit of a show, but they were selling. The old man who was in the picture walks in the door. It says, I don't mean to interrupt. Introduced himself, shook the candidate's hand, heard that you were coming in today. Everybody likes you, and I hope you make the right decision and join our team. And then walked out. That sold the candidate on the fact that somebody had, that the owner of the company, the founder of the company, the CEO of the company had come in and sold them, right? So we'll get into that later on in the week as we talk through it. But that's what I mean about selling. Save that to the end. We don't need to do that at the beginning part of this, beginning part of the qualification and hiring process. So I think I covered those questions. If there's any other questions, feel free to drop those in. We'll get to them tomorrow. So what I want to do here is talk about the framework and the fundamentals. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to add this into the slide. And this is going to be harder for you to read. It's available to you in each of the groups. And it was sent to you if you're in the VIP, but I'm going to walk through this with you. I'm going to hit the high points, and you feel free to go through and look at this. So we're talking about the fundamentals of creating a job posting that's going to attract a candidate. And that's what we're trying to do, is attract the candidates that's the right fit. And we really want to repel the ones that aren't. So I want you to remember that last part. We want to repel those by not describing them, by describing the person who has the skill set, who has the experiences, who has the desires to do what we want them to do. And this is fundamental different. It's going to look completely different than the job postings that you may have done. So the idea here is that we want to focus on the ideal candidate and what their experiences are, not their responsibilities and accountabilities, right? Salespeople, they sort of skim through these ads when they're just bullet points of lists of the fact that you have to be accountable to a revenue goal, you have to make a certain amount of calls, a certain deliverables in terms of the number of proposals that we're doing. All of that we want to eliminate from our job posting. And we want to talk about the experiences that this candidate has had or is in the process of having in their current job. We want to make them read this and think, oh wow, I'm good at that. I do that. That's the emotion we want them to feel when they're reading our ad. And we're going to put this, we'll talk about how we can put this in front of people. But the idea here is not the accountabilities and responsibilities. It's about what they look at. And we'll see, I'm going to show you a couple of sample ads. They're shorter, they cut to the chase, they're on point about who it is we're looking for. And the other thing that goes along with telling the story and not selling the role is the second bullet point here, is that you got to limit our description of the company. We're not selling the company here. We're not telling the role. We're talking about what this candidate can do, what they need to be able to do, and what they're good at. So this idea of the opportunity in the company, again, let's describe the candidate. We want them to be awesome at creating relationships. We want them to be great at networking. We want them to be able to relate to a variety of different decision makers. We want them to be able to hunt, whatever that is for your role, because we would have figured that out at the beginning part of this as to what this person needs to be good at. That's the first step. And here, now we're going to describe what they need to be good at. And so that they, again, when they read this, they're like, that's me. I do that. I'm pretty good at that. We want to give them some examples of what that experience looks like. And it's often around the experience with the industry, with the type of buyer that they're going to talk to. We want them to understand that we want them to speak to the CFO. We want them to speak to the safety director. We want them to speak to the facilities manager. We want to speak to the HR person, whoever that is. We want to be able to describe that, because the thing that we want them to connect the dots with is that if we were a payroll company and we wanted them to talk to the controller or the CFO of a company, depending upon the side, it doesn't matter if they sold payroll in the past. do they know how to talk to that CFO? Do they know how to talk to that controller because of something else that they've sold? So it's not so much the direct industry experience, although that's a bonus and it's nice sometimes. I mean, they may have developed some bad habits. They may have been somebody that coming from a payroll company like, let's just say that they're ADP, right? And everybody knows them and they're a brand name. And you're a smaller, aggressive, nimble payroll company that's local, and you're going for a particular niche to go after charter schools, or you're going after a K through 12 market that has a smaller window. So that we would still want that experience talking to those financial people and helping them understand that we get it, but we're going to be talking to these smaller groups, and we're not going to have that big logo behind us. So knowing how to talk to that buyer is important. And having that big logo is something, if somebody's been used to that in their whole career, they've worked for these big companies and they have always had that, they're going to struggle coming in, working with this no-name company that doesn't have a lot of brand recognition. So again, industry experience worth experience compared to experience calling on the buyers, right? There should be a correlation there. And I would encourage you to rethink some of that. Again, industry experience, technical experience. It's rare that unless we get into some high level enterprise type company and prospect, that we can't boil that technical piece down and the salesperson can qualify them without getting into the nuts and bolts and the wires and how the little the technology works specifically. There's usually a widget and then there's some in and outs. And if we can break it down that simply, it really isn't that important that they understand exactly how the router works or the camera works or the other technical component. Right? We can get to that later. We can bring in a subject matter expert later. So industry experience, correlation to the buyer that we're working on. I think that's more important. We want to give them those examples. And as you'll see in this ad samples that I'm going to show you, we talk about the compensation we expect them to make. And here's the thought process. We're looking at this as on-target earnings. So if we're going to want this person to come in and then within the cycle that we're willing to tolerate, whether that's 6 months, 3 months, 12 months, whatever that is, we want this person to be up and running and generating revenue. We want, like, what are they going to be able to earn when they're on target, hitting the revenue numbers that we want? It's very important we don't BS our way through this. We don't tell them they can make $250,000 if they can only make $1.25. So this has to be real. We have to be able to show them the path when we get to that point in the interview process. When we're making that offer, we want to be able to show them the path to how they get to the revenue number that we reference in the ad. So let's just say that we're on target earnings is $125,000. And we think we don't put the time frame in there, but we think that's going to take them about a year or so to get to. So on target earnings, 125,000. And we've described the experiences that they have. We've described what we expect them to be able to do. So that's going to help them see that this is the dollar amount that they should be able to earn. So if they've been earning $50,000, $60,000 selling copiers, that's a big jump. So that's going to help them figure out that this might not be a good fit. Doesn't mean they won't apply, but they're going to see that it's not a good fit, because we're always going to have people that just throw resumes out there, right? They're just throwing spaghetti against the wall. So those folks we can eliminate, and hopefully they eliminate themselves. But we're bracketing those in. But here's a way to look at that. If we tell them that we expect them to make $1.25, and we've described the things that they need to be good at, and we've described what's important to them for success, what they should be able to see is, like, I've been doing 94,000, right? And I just having trouble breaking 100 because of what I sell, because of the dollar amount, because of the deal size, because of the sales cycle, whatever that is, right? But if they're doing 94,000 or 97,000 and they want to get to that next level, that's the kind of person that might be a fit. We don't know, but that's what we want. We want them to stretch. We want them. So when we come in and interview them, and they are likely, if they're a good candidate, they're going to say, man, I've been struggling breaking 100,000. I need to get to that next level. I must get to that next level. We need to listen to their language. This is going to help us decide if we should, if they've got everything else we're looking for, they've got all of the right competencies, they got the right mindset, they've got the will and the desire, and they really need to get to the next level because they just got married or they just hit a kid, whatever that motivation might be. This will help us understand that there's a gap there, but can they get there? And then we can start to ask questions during the interview process. Is that too big of a gap? Is it too small where there's not going to be a big enough challenge? Right. But that's why we put the number in there to show that they're on target earnings, and that needs to be honest. There's no BS there. I've had a client that said, hey, we can, somebody can get to 200,000. And when I try to unravel that, like, I don't see a path to 200,000. I see them getting to 150, but I don't see you being able to tell the story and like, we've had it happen once by the owner 5 years ago. So, I mean, you got to be honest. We got to be, because we want to be able to tell this story and we want to stand up. There has to be integrity in this process. So, the document that was sent to you should have a link to this. This is something that you can go and start to share with your team, start to help them understand what these differences are. So, and the second and third blocks are samples of job postings. And the first one is a poorly written job posting. So let me sort of walk you through this. And it's really not pertinent to probably many of the folks on the call, but I think everybody understands what a financial advisor does. So I'm going to read this real quick. The independent financial advisory firm has an opportunity for a top producer in a field to join our partnership track. The successful candidate must have prior experience selling financial services to business owners and high-income professionals. So we're already off to this nebulous start, right? We're talking about financial advisory firm, right? We're not giving enough detail about the experiences. We're talking about things in a very generic sense, and I think we want to dial in and help explain. So the rewrite of the ad is below that, so that that first part sounds like equal equity opportunity for a top producer. So that means that somebody can buy into the firm or earn their way into the firm if they're a top producer. So we're only looking for top producers. It's clear. And we've got the pretty big carrot there for them to see. And they must have prior experience selling high-ticket business services to business owners and high-income professionals in a competitive market. So what that's saying to them, we've changed the language around to help them understand that we're not looking for a financial advisor. We're not looking for an insurance salesperson. We're looking at somebody who sold something that was expensive, because that's what this role is. We're going to require. They're going to have a high ticket offering that they're going to have to be able to demonstrate a lot of value. So it doesn't matter what that was, as much as it was that it's high ticket and that we're calling on the same type of buyers, right? And here it's a high net worth individual and business owners. So we're helping them see that even though I'm over in this area here, I still fit this, and I'm looking for that next challenge, right? So just in the first couple of sentences, we can see how this shifts, how this changes the way the job is written, how it's interpreted by the reader, by the candidate. So the next part of this is the candidate must possess excellent prospecting and closing skills, as well as become a partner in the firm within 5 years. All right. I mean, what's excellent prospecting skills, right? We can get into that at some point, but it's just nebulous language that doesn't really describe the person. We've covered part of that in terms of the equity position, right? If somebody's successful and they're a top producer, they can earn their way into the firm. And you must excel at finding and closing new business. and possess the entrepreneurial mindset to be able to partner with and become a partner within 5 years. So we give the time frame, and we talk about what is important, that they have this entrepreneurial mindset where they're able to think outside the box. They're able to think like an entrepreneur and think like they're running a little business, but they got to close new business. We come out and told them, you got to go find new business. We're not going to give you some accounts to go manage, right? That's really, really clear in the second ad in the rewrite. Bachelor's degree required, preferably in a business or related field, right? Send your resume. Financial experience helpful, right? Because it is in their world to understand how annuities and mutual funds and all those things work, right? It gives you an advantage, but is it something that they can be taught, because they're going to have to get licensed? These are things that we're kind of flipping it a little bit from what's experienced, and nowhere does it say they need to have a bachelor's degree. I mean, if I'm looking at a sales candidate, that's comes from a fine institution, from a college degree, and somebody that went to a middle of the road college. I'm not going to name any names so I don't offend anybody. I'll take the middle of the road C student as a salesperson. We can teach them how to spell. We can give them spell check. We can teach them that somebody's got to double check their emails before they go out or before they write a proposal, right? I want somebody that can think like an entrepreneur. I want somebody that can be able to look past what's in front of them and be curious. And that doesn't require a higher education. We want somebody that actually isn't stuck in that paradigm. We want somebody to think a little bit differently. And some of the best entrepreneurs I know aren't from a big school, and some of them haven't even gone to school, right? It's not the rule. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying, why put that put somebody in a box like that? And then again, we need the earnings to exceed 150,000. Excuse me. So we're kind of helping them see that this is the number. So if they have some of that experience and they've been in the financial services industry, they know what that means. So I think that gives you an example, and you can use these as models in the as you go about thinking about writing an ad. And I've got another ad on this list that's specifically oriented towards a commercial security company, a company that that sells cameras, Berg, intrusion, and it's technical in the sense, but really what we need them to understand is that somebody has a problem that they're worried about, whether it's their employees going out of the office at night or somebody that's worried about going into a space where they're not supposed to be. That's the kind of business that they're in, and the cameras and the right equipment in the right spot is something that they have to learn. If they have that experience, terrific, but it's not necessary. So this sample comes up here in the next piece. So I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to share this other framework with you. But I'm hoping that let me shut this down. And so again, what we're looking at here is the framework, and the way I've put this together is it's a plug and play. It helps you break this down, so it makes it easier for you to write, easier to approach this differently. So it comes down to your what, right? What are you looking for? So how do you describe your offering that relates to similar products in the marketplace, in your industry or an adjacent industry? We talked about payroll. We talked about so that somebody that could be, you're selling fire alarm systems. Well, what other low voltage system that fits into the same marketplace, the same type of buyers, right? If you're selling rack systems for a manufacturing facility, what other products are being sold to those same buyers, right? Somebody that's in an adjacent piece, somebody that you right now might be a good partner for you, that they're in the same buildings as you, as your salespeople, and they're noticing things, right? So we might set those people up as a referral partner, right? We just network with those folks. That's the kind of person that we're looking for. Somebody that fits, calls on the same buyer. So that's how I'd like you to think about, your what. And your who is the person that can say yes, the decision maker. Sometimes, of course, there's multiple decision makers depending upon how large our price tag is, but there's somebody that is likely to be able to be that final decision maker. And if we can't get to them, who's the person that's going to champion that to the CEO or to the board or to whoever else that's involved, right? So we want to be able to describe that who. We want to be able to describe who they're going to be able to call on. Have they had the opportunity to call on these people in the past? The market segment, we call the target customer. Is that a vertical, the industry? We want to be able to describe that in a general sense. Again, where do these buyers, what type of adjacent industries are we looking at here? And then let's talk about this. This part is troubling for some folks, but the challenges they're going to face, right? That's something that we should put in the ad, not the detail and not talk about specific objections, but what are they likely to experience? So if you have a premium product and hopefully you're selling it at a premium price, so this person needs to be able to sell value. This is a perfect example of the challenge that we want. We have a company that doesn't have brand recognition. We're nimble. We got a great product. We compete with everybody else that everybody knows. And our pricing is right there with everybody else's because we got a better mousetrap or just as good of a mousetrap. So that's the challenge. We got to get past that logo. We got to get past that. We got to be able to differentiate. So this should be talked about up front, right? We want somebody that understands this. We're not trying to hide anything. We want to do this at the beginning so that we're not having to backtrack and like, oh crap, we forgot to tell you about this big thing that we have. Our product is really expensive and we compete against these huge brands, right? We don't want to have that conversation at the end or, God forbid, after we hire them. We want to be able to explain that we're competitive. We need to be able to sell value, right? And we can ask questions. We'll get into this over the next couple of days. But if we need them to sell value because we have a higher, like, how do you go about selling value now? Think about a deal that you won where you were higher priced from everybody else and describe your process to go through that. It's a great question to ask when we're looking for value. And we can discern their answer if it's bullshit, right? Or if they gave us an answer that really helps us understand that they knew what they were doing, they just didn't get lucky. And if there's any particular skills, right? This is the skills portion of that ad. What do they need to be good at? Like, you're great at hunting, you're great at networking, right? You're awesome at being able to build rapport quickly. Whatever that is that's appropriate for your space, right? Some people, they need to be comfortable being able to go into the boardroom or the conference room to talk with somebody with a tie on, right? Or at least a collared shirt. But they also got to be able to talk to the person in the field who's working in the warehouse or who's managing it. They're out there doing it, getting it done, and they get a little dirty from time to time. That takes a different conversation. And that salesperson, if they need to be able to navigate that, we got to tell them. We want them to be clear about that from the giddy up. So, and what are those extra things that would be a bonus, right? That you got experience with annuities, you got experience working in manufacturing plants that are servicing this industry. Those things that would be like a nice to have, right? What are those, right? And if it's meaningful, we put that in the ad as an aside. It's almost like, hey, it'd be nice if you had this plus all these other things. These things we got to have. This would be cool if you had it. Right? So that's kind of how we should be thinking about it. So in this lower part here of the framework that I'm sharing is that we take what I just described and put that into this framework. And you can take this and play with it, right? You can create a Word document here and start to plug and play these ideas and start to practice, because trust me, this takes some practice to get there, because we're used to writing something much different. We're used to writing these ads that describe the accountabilities and responsibilities. And I'm going to encourage you, for this to be successful, it starts in this ad that we're describing somebody different. We're describing them differently. The end game is to get to the same person, but we're making it a little easier because we're describing them. So once we've worked out this, so when I'm working with somebody to do this, we go through this exercise, and sometimes it's a struggle for them to be able to decide like the who and the what, right? And we have to wordsmith that a little bit, and we have to play with it. But it never takes days to do this. It takes a little bit of focused time. And you can, work with your team to do this. If you have senior salespeople, right, you could share an ad with them to kind of get some feedback as to like, does this describe you? Because I want another one of you, right? If you read this ad, would you say this is describing you? It's a great little checks and balance if you have the person, right? Some of you don't have a salesperson you want to duplicate, you want to clone, right? And nobody's perfect, don't get me wrong, but you can do that little check with them. But first, do the work. Figure out who the who is and what the what and the challenges, right? And that's where this is probably the hard part, is the challenge. And this is, again, senior salesperson, right? Or if you've been a salesperson in this role before and you know where the sticky parts are, talk about it with them. Kind of put that list, just kind of brainstorm it all down, get it all on paper, and then think about how we can put those together, how we can group those, how we can talk about them, because we don't want an ad that's a page and a half long. Like, you go look at ads from, if you go on Indeed or LinkedIn and you're looking at this ad from a corporate, entity, a Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, you see these long ass ads that are just, it's a bunch of gobbledygook, frankly, because it doesn't really tell you. Sometimes the title doesn't even tell you what the job is about. It's some kind of sales role. And we got to spend a lot of time figuring out what is it they really want us to do if a candidate's serious. So if we can help that process, simplify that, that's why this ads framework is going to make it easier for the right candidates to sign up. It's going to make it easier for the right candidates to self-identify and self-identify out, which is part of this process. We want them to realize that this might not be a good fit for me, and maybe I shouldn't apply to this. So I would encourage you to take a couple of swings at this. This is not something that you're going to get on the first try. It's going to take you a little bit of effort. It's going to take you some practice. So here's the offer for that. If you want to put forth the effort to try to figure that out, and you send me an email with the copy that you've created, and I will, I'm not going to rewrite the ad. I'm not going to go do all the work for you, but I will give you some comment. I'll give you some notes, as they say, to help you understand what you may have hit, what you did right, what you did wrong, right? And not to be black and white, but we're trying to get to a spot. So I'm happy to do that. So if you send me that email with the copy on it, give me 24 hours. Just put in the subject line challenge, job posting, and that'll let me know that let my team know that I need to be able to look at this quickly and get back a response. I think it's something that it takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of effort, and it's a little foreign. So I think you need to give it a shot and try it. And I'm happy to help you with that component of taking a swing, learning, taking a swing, learning, because that's what it's going to take. And frankly, when I'm working with somebody doing this, this part is a little bit of a struggle, especially if I'm working with an HR person. They like, this is not how we do it. It's not how I was taught. I'm like, I get it. We're trying to get a different result, right? So that's one area where that HR generalist will push back. So if you have an office where you have that HR person that's going to help with this piece, expect a little pushback there. And the way I do that is, if you're expecting to do exactly the same thing and get a different result, we're going to be disappointed. So let's try something different. You can A/B test it. You can run the same ad on the same platform and see which one gets results. It's a great little test. So the other area that, if you're dealing with an HR person, that will give you some pushback is what we're going to talk about tomorrow and on Thursday. So, because what I'm going to ask is that we teach everybody. Excuse me, folks. Sorry about that. That we teach our interviewers and our phone screeners to challenge the candidates. And we're challenging them with this job posting by having them look at this and sort of self-identify if there's somebody that's a good fit. But when in the process of doing a phone screen and an interview, what I've seen, and I've gotten pushback from HR people, is that, you're asking me to challenge them. That seems a little impolite. It seems a little bit unprofessional, because they're not comfortable doing anything other than making the candidate feel comfortable that this is a wonderful place. It's warm and friendly, and everyone's going to be great. And then you hire them in, you bring them in, they're done, right? They see them every once in a while when there's a review on benefits, and you got to deal with this person in a different way, and your expectations are different. So what we're going to talk about tomorrow is a little bit more of a mindset, but I want to challenge that the first time I speak to them, I want to challenge them and say, look, here's the scenario. And I make it really simple and clear. So a phone screen might sound like, I appreciate you jumping on the call. We scheduled 10 minutes for this phone screen. Probably won't take 10 minutes. I have a bunch of these to do today, and my goal is to figure out, of the 10 people I'm talking to, the 3 that I'm going to bring back. So the goal here is to figure out if you're one of the 3. You ready? Right? That's how we started off. And we can say that as harshly and nicely as we want. I want it to be warm. I want the tone to be friendly. I want it to be crystal clear that there's an agenda here, and it's mine, not theirs. And we're going to make sure that we're going through this process on my pace and on my time. And if we got a salesperson who's worth their weight, they're going to be lean into this and go like, oh, I got a challenge. Oh, right. And that's what I'm looking for. I want somebody who's going to be like, all right, bring it on, man. And they've got that competitive juices are flowing. And that's what I'm looking for. So this whole thing, from the figuring out what we're really looking for, to the job posting and what that looks like, to the phone screen and the interviews, we're challenging them the whole way, right? We're polite, we're professional, we're nice, but we're not going to be taking warm walks on the beach with these guys until we figure out if they can sell, if they perform. Right? You can take them for a walk on the beach after they've hit their number and crushed it. In the front end, we want to treat them like a prospect and see if they actually can withstand a little bit of pressure. It's part of the process. So I would encourage you to go through this framework, take a swing at it. Just even if it's an old job posting or an old part, you're thinking about hiring somebody, but you're not really sure, right? Go through what it is we're looking for, and then put this together. It doesn't have to be done tonight, but I would try to get it done this week and get some feedback on this. If you have questions, go ahead and email me, put them in the chat, put them in the group chat, in the groups that you might be in. We're here to help. We want you to have a level of comfort to go try something new. And that's part of the mindset. You're going to try something new. It's going to be a little weird. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but this process works. It's been working for almost 3 decades. So appreciate your attention. I'll see you tomorrow, where we're going to get into what that phone screen sounds like. We're going to talk about one of the tools. We're going to talk about some of the templates that we use to make this go faster and easier, to create some consistency. So I look forward to it. Thanks for your attention, and we'll see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Thanks.